And welcome back. Today we are continuing with the customization of the Treadspeeder from Star Wars. If you've seen the other videos, you know that I intend to make this into a little display. And I'm now carrying on with layering of this figure or the bike by adding into the mix some layering with some Fenrisian grey, which I'm going to layer back over the original bluey grey surfaces. It's going to be a very, very, very light layering. So that the dirt and grime underneath continue to show through. Let's see here, this is a very light watering. Might be a little too runny for what I want. That's fine. I'll add some more paint in. Just add another scoop. That's a little better. I don't want much on the brush, I just want thin coats going over. The idea being that the grime and the dirt and the original metal have all built up together. And already here you can see how the dirt is still showing through. I want to be careful and not get too much, if I can help it, into the actual panel lining. I'd like to keep that as dark as possible. I suspect after I've done this layer, I'm going to build up the grime again, which would be fine. This is going to be a lengthy project with multiple build-ups of layers to give this a real of a look as entirely possible to my expertise, which isn't that great. Very light, thin coats of this grey, just so. Then after I've done the grey metal work on the tops and the sides, these inner panels will be done in a much, much darker grey, with the treads being a black, and then the silver will end up being a gunmetal grey. But again, it will be layered over this grime and dirt. Why I want to cover as much as possible. If I do miss a little bit, I'm not too worried, as it will add that little level of built up grime that just gets into those corners that you never quite can manage to clean. This bit will definitely need a nice thicker coat just to hide that green stuff. There we go. Then I'm going to do the same this side. I already did that and I'm done of those. It's the back I need to do. Out tops here, the back, get under there, there we go. There we go. So that is the framework done. While that's drying, I'm going to do the tread itself. I do want a nice thick black for the tread though. So I'm just going to clean off my brush. If you do any model painting or anything like that, I can't talk enough about the Citadel water containers. They have grooves for cleaning of the brushes and ridges to help get all that excess paint off, so they are brilliant. They're a little pricey, they're about £7 or £8, but it's totally worth it. That's that to one side. I now want a black, and I'm going to actually go back to my original acrylics. I'm going to bring in and use the black I used earlier. I'm going to put a little bit onto the mat. All I'm using as a mat is the Thunderbird 5 model kit top I built a few months ago. It will last for several sessions and then I'll be able to swap it out for some other piece of cardboard or something. There we go, let's see how that's looking. Maybe just one more drop. There we go. Just trail that way. If you're not too familiar with painting, if you've always water down your paints. Not that I ever listen to my own advice on that, but water down your paints, and then taking a bit of the paint, just twirl it along the paper or the board or whatever you're using, and just see what the consistency looks like. That's reasonable. I do want a thicker brush though, so this one can go to one side, and I can hook out the brush I was using earlier. That's a better brush. I want a slightly thicker bristle for this because I'm using the whole area. Start underneath and I think what I'm going to do with the treads is build up the blacks on the thicker parts, and the connector parts will remain essentially the colour they are. I might add another layer or something to them later, but I kind of want to differentiate between the shades or the connecting pieces of metal. So I don't know how well that's showing up, but you can see there that as a result of what I'm doing, you can sort of get two different tones. While I'm going over some of it, I'm not too worried, especially with the underside, because the underside is going to eventually be stuck down to that base. A little more careful now. Well, again, I'm not too worried if I end up going over some of the connectors. I would like to keep as much of the darker black off it as possible. Eventually this will all be given a layering of some dust colouring that give it that look that it's dirty and that it's been riding through the desert. Of course, I've personally just decided to go with the desert look because I liked it, but in theory these Treadspeeders are probably used all over the galaxy, so you know, you could use them in any display you wanted. You could have them in a forest, perhaps even in a, you know, a snow frozen setting. I'd imagine the treads cut nicely into that, into frozen wastes. There we go. So now I'm just going to go over the sides of the treads. And then once I've done the sides, I'm going to get a smaller brush and I'm actually going to go into the grooves here and add that black. I'm going to need some more in a minute. Oh, I kind of like that. It's completely accidental, but no, I doubt it's going to show up on the camera. But here, some of the sand I on the board when I ran it through. It's been stuck and built in it, and it's layered it. That looks quite nice. I might actually get some more sand and groove it into this part on the inside so it layers it. Let's bring back this one, and again I'm going to use a drop this time. One. I'll get some water and just mix that in. And yeah, that's fine. This I'm just plopping into the sides, the insides of the tank treads to give them that matching tone. Like so. And the same on this side. There we go. So that I'm going to turn upside down and let the bottom of the treads dry for a bit. There we go. Clean that up. So I'm going to leave that for a while and let it dry properly before I move on to the next layers, where I'm going to do the darker greys along here. I'll relayer some black wash on this to add that layer of the grime to it. But for the moment, that, and we're back. The black is dry, and so is the layering on the surface. You can see the dirt still coming through quite nicely. It's given some depth and tonage to it. I'm going to do another wash on this eventually, but the next stage is doing this section. I'm going to use a Citadel paint, which is Corvus Black. It's a, I don't know how well it shows up on camera, but it's more of a very, very dark grey. So get some water. Get one more. So this should just go over quite nicely over the framework of the bike. It's giving it a nice dark colour. I'm not expecting this to show up the grime in the same way as the casing is. Rather, I'm hoping what will happen is that the black wash on this will end up helping to highlight the various panel lines, etc. Before this is all said and done, I will be giving this another black wash to give it that grime. However, I think what I will end up using is one of the Citadel paints, as it'll be more of a, it won't be so thick as the last wash, it'll be a gentler wash, to rather just sort of highlight the details and the dirt a little bit more. With Citadel, they have a couple of different shade and contrast paints you can use for washes, and the Newland oil or even the Agrex Earthshade they have add some really nice depth and dark toning to the model you're adding a shade to. With the Newland oil, it really does give quite a greasy look to it. So if you're working with something which is a machine or a mechanical item of some kind, that helps add that layer of depth and realism to it with that level of grime. So here is our this bit here I'm painting at the moment appears to be an exhaust, and I think I'm going to go back over it later on with a metal colour to give it some depth and contrast to the rest of the bike. So there we have that. That's added quite a dark look to it, which looks quite nice. Back over some bits. There we go. Next up, I think, is I'm actually going to do the seat. What I'm going to do with the seat is base it in a lighter colour, and then I have some paint which can help give this a leather look. So, what colour do I think would be best? Probably an earthy tone. Actually, I wonder if I have something in. Let's see what we've got. Ah, wonderful. We actually have a proper brown. So I use the brown initially to give this that's more brown than I need. It's quite dark brown. What I'm actually going to do is also tone it out just a bit, I think. Oops, keep doing that. Going to add just the smallest little drop of white to that brown. And I'll get some water in to help mix them together. There we go. It's a slightly lighter colour. That's better. Yes, that's definitely better. It's actually a little watery than I had hoped. Let's try that again. It's still kind of very, very watery. Let's try doing that one more time. So we will add just a small dot of the brown. And we will bring back our white. Let's get a little tap for those. Tip for our white. And mix those in again. There we go. That's better. That's better. So I'm just going to get some brown. Clean off that first layer. I really didn't like what happened there. And then it really doesn't want to layer on at all. Okay, that's fine. Didn't like that. What I'm going to do then is base it with a lighter colour. So this Wraithbone white will do. There we go. Not too bothered on how thick or light of a colour this looks like. I just need a base for the darker colour to adhere to later on, which is fine. This is all experimental, so that should act as a base once it's dry to allow me to put the brown over it. So I'm going to leave that to dry for a bit, and then we will come back and take another swing at the next steps.